Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we're going to be talking about Ripple and XRP. So let's just dive in and let's talk about a few things. So first and foremost, I hope everybody's having a great day or great night wherever you guys are. Today we're going to be looking into a few things specifically around the adoption of XRP, specifically the XRP ledger, I should say, as well as going into a few other things as well. So definitely stick around until the end of this video. But I want to talk to you guys about this tweet from Wrath of Kahneman, and it is this, 2022 economic report and fiscal update from the Republic of Palau. Their notes state that their USD stablecoin implementation with Ripple is not just for their commerce, but for international finance purposes as well on the XRP ledger. Remember, Palau was one of the biggest announcements that we've seen with the XRP ledger, with XRP going back to, I think that was the beginning of 2021. I might be wrong on that. It might also be around like the fall timeframe. There was a lot of news to cover back in 2021, but we do see here the administration supports a growth-oriented economic strategy to reduce or eliminate the need for restrictive fiscal policy. Economic growth will be targeted through implementation of the high-value tourism strategy and diversification and support for prudently selected new opportunities in the international finance sector. And they also do, focus on COVID-19, aka the crisis. And they are talking about like the painful, adjustments that they had to, take. And things like that. But also they talk about the cost of the nation's health in the short term, or the short run, of Palau's pristine environment in the long run. Rather, the option of combining a planned approach to achievement of the high-value tourism concept together with a prudent pursuit of new opportunities that Palau's inherent sovereignty and enhanced communications capacity now provide. The administration has focused on the international finance sector with new initiatives like the digital residency and possible issue of a U.S. dollar-based and dollar-backed stablecoin, together with legislation laying the groundwork for private banking and trust. And I think that this is something special. And we do see down here, to be more precise, they note their stablecoin and international finance aspirations, not Ripple involvement, though that is well documented in the press by Palau itself elsewhere. Again, within this, they don't mention Ripple or XRP or anything like that, but we know that they have been utilizing Ripple tech for a while, and it would make sense for them to actually utilize them, but there is no like full-on confirmation here at all. But it definitely would make sense for them to utilize Ripple for this. I mean, they are already utilizing them for their, digital currency strategy. And at this current moment in time, I actually do believe that there's going to be a lot more CBDCs launching on the XRP ledger simply because of the efficiencies of it. Even down here, they do talk about, to achieve its financial and climate related goals. Again, with those financial goals, these are all of those laid out here. So again, they don't mention Ripple at all, but I do believe that Ripple will be included in this, and it is going to be for international finance purposes as well. And I think that that is something special to definitely look into. Also, I do have this video over here. This is welcome to the real world crypto fans. Can't be a store of value for the sake of being a store of value. Has to have a use case, bridges where it's at, onward. And this is from boy_XRP on Twitter. Also, the speaker over here is Dalip Singh. I hope that I'm saying that name right. He is the United States Deputy National Securities Advisor for International Economics. And we actually do see that he is one of the architects of the sanctions that the U.S. implemented on Russia after Russia invaded the Ukraine in 2022. So he is a substantial name. And listen closely to this. It's a little bit long of a video. It's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds, but listen closely.
The payment architecture, and then I'll speak about consumer protection considerations on digital assets. So you're right, Juan, the EO makes it very clear. We think Americans are poorly served by the status quo as it relates to the current payment architecture. 5% of American households are unbanked. Another 17% are underbanked, which means they still use non-bank payment services like check cashing or payday lenders, likely at least due in part to the fact that checks sometimes take up to 2 days to clear. And so a lot of low-income consumers in particular face a choice of paying exorbitant overdraft fees from their bank, or they have to turn to check cashing services or payday lenders, also with very high fees, to meet their obligations. So that's a poor state of play. And the status quo is even worse for cross-border payments. Transaction and conversion fees tend to average about 2% per cross-border transaction if you live in a G7 country. And those fees can be up to 10% of the transaction if you live in a developing country. So that's an enormous tax for those who send or receive remittances. And so the EO recognizes we're overdue for cheaper and faster digital payment options that are available to more people. And it sets out work to identify the right protections for privacy and security as we identify new options, and then also the appropriate oversight for to guard against money laundering, to make sure we have tax compliance, that we're monitoring for sanctions evasion and so forth. Now, as it relates to digital assets, let me start with assets that are not backed by a fiat currency and therefore have no intrinsic value. Today is a demonstration of the fact that these tend to be highly volatile assets. And because their price is so volatile, they're generally not used for transactions. And Bitcoin is, I think, better thought of as a digital store of value. Okay, and so what the EO says is that consumers should be afforded disclosures on the risks with these investments, market risks, operational risks, security risks, and consumers should have protections on their sensitive data and shielded against unlawful acts of surveillance. Now, when it comes to stablecoins, Anne alluded to these. We're talking about digital assets that attempt to peg their value against one or several fiat currencies. Okay, so in theory, these assets may have a better chance of being used for transactions, but here we have a public interest in transparency and disclosure. Consumers ought to know whether and to what extent there's a mismatch between the asset side of the balance sheet of stablecoin issuers and their liability side in terms of risk, market risk, liquidity risk, duration risk.
And I love the fact that he does tout the idea of transparency, and we actually do see even XRP Riz down here saying, keyword transparency XRP. I do believe that transparency is key. Transparency is not only XRP, though. You can see that on even HBAR as well. But I do like the idea that he does talk about cross-border payments. We know that Ripple has been, focused on that market for a while, and they are so much bigger than just cross-border payments by, this point. But that was their original goal, and that was their original mission. And they did revolutionize that payment market itself. But going forward, I do believe that the main focus point here is going to be revolutionizing the bridges between payment systems, aka, cross-border payments, or any transaction that is going to take place cross-border itself. But also the payment mechanisms that we are utilizing right now are extremely inefficient. That's why we look at networks that are going to be disruptive. RippleNet is a perfect example. Remember, Swift is centralized, so RippleNet is a centralized network. But if you are utilizing something like XRP with XRP, or the XRP ledger, with XRP, that is decentralized, but RippleNet could essentially become the new Swift, which we have talked about. That is not their end goal. That is not their goal at all right now either. But they are substantially, being recognized as a leader within the financial sector, as well as building out some major connections to some very, very large banking leaders, and they have been doing that for well over, the last couple years. And I think that they are achieving a global distribution of on-demand liquidity as a service, as well as, building out some substantial on-demand liquidity corridors. And I think that their, work is not going unnoticed. I think that, leaders like, the Fed, or even the IMF,
the payment architecture, and then I'll speak about.
I did not mean to play that again. But major players like the IMF, the Federal Reserve, even the World Economic Forum, ECB, etc., they are all realizing the power and the potential behind this technology. They're not going to miss out at all here at all. And the funny thing is that even if you go over to the ECB on Twitter, they recently did make this post, which we did break down on this channel as well, where they were talking about the harmonization of crypto assets and crypto asset activities. We do see here we have taken steps to harmonize the assessment of licensing requests for crypto asset activities. Supervisors will focus particularly on business models, internal governance, and the experience of managers and board members. Remember, they are all ready. These major agencies are fully ready, but these central banks are the ones to focus on, because central banks are at a very, very rough moment in history, and that rough moment is similar to 2008, where central banks are going to basically hit a wall, and they're going to have a liquidity crisis on their hands. A lot of them are having some trouble right now currently in some areas, which we have been reporting on. And I do think that it's only a matter of time before we do see a full-on collapse of the system. But this could be avoided. I think that this could be avoided by utilizing crypto-driven networks as well as payment mechanisms, because the biggest key right now is liquidity. How do you solve liquidity? How do you solve these liquidity crises? Well, you have transparency. Also, central bank digital currencies do help the system, because not only does it offer transparency within, liquidity, within problems arising, it also allows these central banks to be backed on their own payment mechanism. The biggest issue is having a one size fits all for every single financial district. This is where problems do arise, and this is where we do see collapses like the 2008 collapse. Are we leading to that point again? It is hard to say if we aren't. Currently, all signs point to a yes. It looks like we will see a repeat of 2008. But is that their end goal? Is that their mission right now? Is to collapse the current financial system and usher in the new one, which we have discussed on this channel as well. It is a possibility. Also, remember, right, when we look at things happening around Euro, sorry, I should say Europe, not Euro. We do see here. I can see why XRP will be the standard in Europe. Shout out to Anderson here. There is an energy crisis going on globally, if you guys are paying attention to that as well. I know a lot of people think that's all noise, and it could be. It could be a distraction to not only usher in crypto-driven assets that are sustainable and utilize them, like, for example, XRP. We do see here, the number of light bulbs, dishwashers, and even, driven car miles that could be powered by the energy use of 220 million transactions on, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and even Visa, which Visa is a major player. And then you look at XRP. And the number of light bulbs, when you look at Visa, is 8,177 compared to 14 with XRP. You also do see the dishwashers, 3,826, and then you do see 6. And then 6 million, and then you do see 11,018. The sustainability factors behind some of these assets are to not be disregarded. When you look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, I've always said that they are not a main choice or solution to the inefficiencies that do plague the transactional flows. But when you look at something like Visa compared to even XRP or even HBAR, remember HBAR is also carbon negative. They are the clear choice here. And I do think that going forward, we will see a clear choice behind digital assets, and we will see a major push behind digital assets as well. It is only a matter of time before we do see a global impact from the crypto market. And I know that we've already been starting to see a global impact already, but I'm talking about global mass adoption of crypto-driven, transactional payment flows and rails. And I think that this kind of also talks into the idea of like CBDC adoption. CBDCs have been starting to go live. We've been discussing CBDC development as well. It is a substantial area to focus on. But also, when we look at XRP with Ripple, right? Going back to 2021, when we did see Palau, there was a lot other announcements as well similar to this. On-demand liquidity corridors are one to focus on. We've been talking about global coverage from on-demand liquidity and why that is a substantial area. But the biggest one is always going to be cross-border payments. Whenever I think about XRP, I know that the main focus here should also be like tokenization and like CBDCs at the heart and soul of everything. But honestly, when you look at cross-border payments, you want to see transparency. And I love to see this dashboard over here of like the cross-border payment solution itself, because it not only provides transparency, but it also shows you every single breakdown of it. You see the gross volume, the total transactions, completed transactions, return transactions, everything down to the T. All of this is incredible, but also you see everything else as well. You see the freeing up working capital. You see the offering lower cost payments, the expanding into new markets, the enablement of faster payments. You're going to see real-time settlement, through on-demand liquidity with XRP at the forefront. Like, this is the biggest revolution. And you are already seeing these benefits being, solidified from names like Novati, like Tranglo, and even, Azimo. And there's so many other ones as well, and they do have a full-on breakdown of this. And like I said, Ripple has been expanding globally. You see all of the areas down here in regards to their global payouts. I mean, it is substantial, but what we are all waiting for, and I'm sure that everyone that is watching this that is an XRP holder can contest to this as well. We are waiting for the price to reflect the global adoption. But how do we get there? Well, currently most of the payments that are being transacted within XRP are in the billions. I'm actually very excited to see when we are doing just $1 trillion in global payment volume on-demand liquidity in just one singular year. I'm not asking for a lot. We're not talking about $5 trillion a day like Swift or anything like that. Do I think that we will get to that point? It's a possibility, and I do think that the payment mechanisms with XRP kind of solidifies that. Again, I don't want to give you guys a 100% confirmation of that happening, but I'm just saying, like, with the power and the potential behind Ripple with XRP, the sky's the limit. I've always said this. I think a lot of the innovations that are happening within crypto are not being truly, realized. And it's not being realized because of the barriers to success around that. And that is not only, a lot of the issues that we do talk about within, we just recently talked about this in a video, talking about, the congestion that is happening within DeFi by utilizing inefficient payment mechanisms like Ethereum. But it's also regulations. I think that regulations are holding a lot of these tokens, specifically XRP, back as well, from being massively adopted and being utilized on a global scale. That settlement discussion around XRP with the SEC, I would argue that that is the flip the switch moment, which everyone talks about. I don't think that it's going to be like an overnight thing where we do see thousands and thousands of players signing on, but I do think that that is going to be the flame that really kind of sets everything ablaze for Ripple and XRP adoption. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on if you guys have more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. As always, up to you all. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful night, wherever you guys are in this beautiful world. This has been Nick. Peace out, guys.